Thank you very much. Honorable audience, and not least Mr. Ho, thank you for me being here. I'm very honored to be invited to this conference and happy to be able to tell you about the Danish Højskole, sometimes in English called Danish folk high schools. It has nothing to do with a high school, so it's not the best translation, but it will do, as long as you know that I'm talking about Højskole when I say folk high schools. It is a unique form of free schools that has influenced the development of Denmark in many ways. And it is my hope that it will influence the development worldwide in the future to make the world just a bit more peaceful and happy, prosperous and sustainable, and meaningful, not least. I hope it all begins here today with you in South Korea. Behind the Højskole are great thoughts that formed the Nordic countries during the last 150 years into becoming some of the most happy, richest, most free and most safe countries in the world, according to international statistics, that is. And this spectacular, quick development, going from poverty and defeat to peace and prosperity over a very short period, is built on a lot of different things, of course, but the main core of all these things is basically the concept of sharing. Imagine Denmark in the last part of the 19th century, a former European superpower, not now a very small country, severely reduced in size and wealth through wars and defeats. Most are very poor, weak and uneducated, and very few are rich, educated and powerful. Within 50 years, this changed a lot, and within 100 years, this changed completely. No other places in the world went through similar changes that fast. But why? That's a big question. Not least because a few far-sighted men realized that to build up a prosperous and peaceful nation on top of these ruins, they only had one single material left for building: the people itself. And in order to do so, in order to use this potential commodity, first you have to create a people that feels like a people. And now comes the radical thought, to do so, they had to share with the people. They needed to set the people free of all the things constraining the true potential. And so they did. First, they had to share their power. And to enable the people to rule themselves, they also had to share their knowledge, giving the people the insight to rule properly. With shared power and knowledge came freedom and equality. And with freedom and equality came ownership, mutual trust, and not least responsibility. Because when you write your own history, when you create your own society, you are top motivated to take good care of it and of the members of this society, namely the people. And the somehow surprising fact is that when you share your ideas, your power and the responsibility, instead of keeping them to yourself, everyone prospers in any way possible. That is what some people call the Nordic secret. But let it no longer be a secret to you. Until the middle of the 19th century, the few had been the head of the many. And now the mob had to develop a head of their own, because the weak without a head is always in danger of being controlled by stronger powers. To make a mob resilient, they must turn themselves from being a mob to becoming a people. By sharing the power, the men of power opened for critique of the very same system that sustained their own power. This is an essential point. The emancipation of the people and the unleash of their potentials are only realized through protesting against the already existing system. In other words, the people got clever And with this new wisdom, they saw that the system had to be improved. Not once, but over and over again. Because this is the way people write their own history. So protesting and being free and critical is not only a civil right, it's actually a civil duty. The emancipation of the people was not only a matter of education. It was far more than that. It was more like self-expression. It was what we in Danish call dannelse, suited for the common people. And this kind of folk building was a whole new way of thinking. The Danish word dannelse means something like the building of the individual while interacting with the world, and at the same time the building of the world and the society within the very same meeting, the meeting between the individual and the world. In Old Greece and Middle East, we find early concepts of this building process. The good citizen is the one who possesses self-control, from Greece called enkratia. This is very important in the antique worldview, because if you are not your own master, someone else will be. Maybe an evil spirit, a demon, another man, your neighbor's daughter, you name it. So the first thoughts about building was for men with status. Slaves, kids, women, and other non-citizens had to be controlled by the men for their own good and for the sake of the heritage. The next really important step in history of building comes in the age of the Enlightenment in Europe. Humboldt, a German philosopher in the end of the 18th century, he named building as the finest and most balanced development of man. But still, this was pointed at the most influential of the big cities, and still only men. In the middle of the 19th century, Grundtvig, as you heard of a couple of times today, the founder of the Danish Højskole movement, gave his version of building and turned it into folk building. The real new thing with folk building was that this was pointed at a new target, not at the nobles, not at the rich, but at everyone. Grundtvig talked a lot about the concept of life enlightenment. Through mental and physical movement, you get to know about life, not in the pursuit of wealth or status or redemption, but in the pursuit of meaning. You'll never reach it, the full meaning, but you will grow trying. And this growth is building. To become a people, you need to have insight in your own history on the one hand, and on the other hand, you need to be able to dream about the future. Creating new societies in the light of both old and new times. In order to dream about the future, you need to feel ownership, and you need to be critical to what you already think that you know. And you need to feel that you can be a changing factor in creating a new world. One of the most important institutions in Denmark undertaking this task of folk building was the Danish Højskole, of course. Young people were sent to these schools to become free, self-thinking, self-controlling, responsible individuals with a critical sense. The responsibility towards fellow man based on shared humanity was crucial and always came first. The specific cultural and religious worldviews came second. So the shared humanity is a core in the folk building. And after having been together for a while, they started to share. The foundation of the Danish society became sharing, and in many ways it still is, not in a communistic sense, but in a more liberal way. They shared ideas, insights, materials, started businesses together, and helped each other in times of hardship. Everyone benefited from this way of collaboration in many ways, and step by step the Danish society became one of the richest and most safe in the world. So, the Danish Højskole were and still are really habitats for growing personal development within the process of community building. The Højskole is also about education, but the task of the Danish Højskole is to use education as a tool for folk building. It's not a learning process by which you try to build people in a certain way that fits the state or giving them new competences. It's an emancipatory process which enables the people to break out of restraining patterns and break down and build themselves and the state that they are themselves part of in the same process over and over again. And this process never stops because it's all about being ready to put your own worldview at stake. Because you might learn something new about the meaning of life, never mind how clever you are. So folk building is not about skills, but it's a matter of growth of man and mankind inside the frame of a community. But how are we, the Danish Højskole, fulfilling our task as responsible for this folk building today? In many, many different ways. Very different ways. And to understand this, I'll try to explain a bit about our legal conditions, our relationship to the Danish state, and the foundation of our pedagogy. First of all, the Danish Højskole are value-born. We relate to the values chosen by the board of the single school. We have obligations toward the state, of course, because we get part of our economy from the state, and we have legal restraints, but very, very few. First and foremost, we are free schools supported by the state to be in large free of the state's control. These are terms that we in part share with the other free schools, among other the Efterskole that we just heard about. And for many people, this may seem as an odd and even irrational system. But this system has played and plays a great role in the development of the Danish nation through more than 150 years. So how does it work to be a free school? For every student we have, we receive money from the state. Many students are with us a half a year or a whole year. Others are only with us for a week, following different subjects after their own choosing. And all students are adults, meaning that they are at least 18 years old. And most of the students in my school, Brandberg Højskole, where I'm a principal, on the long courses are from 18 to 30 years old. And on the week courses, they are from 18 to 100 years old. So this is about lifelong learning and lifelong folk building. We can teach whatever we like, and the students, they can choose whatever they like. We are completely free when it comes to subjects. In my own school, we teach in many various subjects such as cultivation in vegetable gardens, kayaking, singing, hunting even, philosophy, yoga, games and play, ceramics, political activism, sexuality, dance, sustainable building, cooking, film production, and 40 more. I mean, we can teach anything. In other schools, they have a very different range of subjects of their own choosing. The students, they choose one school, and in that school they choose the subjects they want. So the freedom goes for both the schools as well as for the students. And we have no exams. No exams at all. Figure that out. This is quite strange. I don't think there's many schools in this world with no exams and no curriculum at all. We can teach whatever we like and the way we choose ourselves. Many of us doesn't even use books in our classrooms. And the classroom might as well be in the forest or in a workshop. No one is checking up upon if the students learn anything. The students get no papers, no tests, no examination. It is the timeless common values that matters. So what's the point of it all? The point is folk building. Dannelse in Danish. Through enlightenment and enlivenment, of course, our students, they learn a lot. They learn about the subjects. They learn how to make ceramics, improve their singing, or they are taught about gender and sexuality, etc. But they are, above all, this learning, using these subjects as training rooms for their own ability to grow as human beings, thereby being able to choose for themselves, to take responsibility, to be an active part of a society, to develop perspectives toward the meaning of life, the common good, politics, sustainable living, you name it. They are, in other words, developing themselves or building themselves as humans and as a people. This is the essence of folk building. They do so by interacting with the subjects, of course, with the teachers and with each other in a setting where we are all, in many aspects, equal. The students and the teachers as well, and even the principal and the students. A really important thing about folk building is that everyone participates. Everyone has something to offer, and everyone has something to learn. No one has the final answer. We are searching for answers together in the living interaction between each other. That's why we sing and we talk and we play and we fail and we do crazy stuff together on Højskole. To share ourselves with each other. And after a while you realize that no matter how different we are, we share some central components of being a human. Within this meeting, you exceed yourself in order to become yourself. A lot of the enlivenment, and thereby an essential part of the folk building, is going on outside of the classroom, just as soon he explained with the Højskole. That's where you get to know each other, and that's why students are living on the Højskole for up to 1 year. Some teachers, cooks, and caretakers, the staff live there as well. And together students and staff are a kind of family, helping each other to form and develop. And this formation process, this building process is never ending. So everyone is participating always. And no matter how clever or wise you may be, you are never done with folk building. Because you can always learn new perspectives on life from meeting with other people. Especially the people that is different from yourself. On my own school, Randbjerg, we try to get students from all over the world and all over Denmark, from all layers of society, with all kinds of educational background, all kinds of interests, and in different levels of age, in order to make the community of the school as multifarious as possible. Because that's what makes the best foundation for folk building. This is a hard task. Because you need to move yourself to try to understand the others. And it is exactly when you are moving out of your own static worldview to try and understand the others that you widen up your horizon. Grundtvig, he once said, living without moving is okay for carrots and cabbages, but obviously not for human beings. This describes the process of folk building. It's about moving. You never know exactly where you go, and you just move to grow. And freedom is essential. So if these schools are so good at building people, why then is it not mandatory for everyone in Denmark, in the Danish society, to be in Højskole or in Efterskole? Because the freedom is essential. The freedom to choose or not to is essential to a democratic society. And the other way around, the schools should always be free to teach what they want. But why is this concept of the free schools interesting from the state's point of view. In order to strengthen the democratic values, to avoid fundamentalism, for instance, to be able to consciously develop and renew society with new perspectives on life, and to seek the meaningful life of the people. The state needs to hand over power to the people. They do so within the framework of the free schools. And what about the effect on the students? Well, we heard a lot about happiness, heard a lot about reflection and new perspectives. And this is what they gain in these schools, in Højskole. So I think you'll find these strange kinds of schools, in your perspective, very interesting. I think you should come and visit us in Denmark, or even start up your own Højskole here. Thank you very much for listening. I hope my words make sense to you and might inspire you to new ways of education and folk building in South Korea. Thank you.